Hello students, today I'm going to start the challenge of bipolarity. This is the next part of the first chapter, Cold War and NAM. NAM is non-aligned movement. As we all know, non-aligned movement, it was also started during the Cold War. So what was the need of this NAM? Non-aligned movement. It was a challenge to the bipolarity. Bipolarity means when there were the two blocks in the world, two alliances were formed, that was Eastern and Western Alliance led by US and USSR. So newly independent country, there is a new word in this topic, newly independent countries. Which were these countries? These were basically the countries those were attaining the independence from the colonialism, any of the colonial power. Like India got the independence from the British. Like that, there were so many countries in Asia and Africa, those were getting the independence from their colonial rulers. So these countries, many of the countries, they because these countries were LDCs are least developed countries. These were the economically backward countries. They wanted to make their people out of the poverty. So they were not having the economic resources, and they were not militarily very strong. So they need the help of any of the big power, any of the strong or developed country at the time of need. Need can be economically, need can be militarily, against their regional rivals. So these were the newly independent countries which were least developed countries. So this was the non-aligned movement gave them the third option. So these countries were having two choices, either to join US power bloc or USS power bloc. But this was the NAM which gave them third choice. It is also known as the third world also. The countries of the non-aligned movement, collectively they are also known as the third world. So what was the main aim of this non-aligned movement? That is, to newly independent countries should not join any of the power bloc, because they were getting the independence from their colonial rulers after a very long struggle. So once they join either of the power bloc, it means their independence. Again, they will lose their independence, their hard-earned sovereignty. This was the possibility to lose it. So that is why this was the next option, the third option given to them. And there were the five main leaders and the countries, or the countries which lead to this non-aligned movement. So in that, these were known as the founder members of NAM. In this, number one, we can say that is India, then Indonesia, Egypt, Ghana, and Yugoslavia. These were the five countries, and the leaders of these countries, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sukarno, this Gamal Abdel Nasser, and Joseph Broz Tito, Nuque Comre. ये फाइव लीडर्स थे जिनको हम कह सकते हैं दीज वर द फाउंडर्स ऑफ नैम. So the first of summit of non-alignment was held in Belgrade 1961. It was attended by the 25 member states. That time there were 25 member states, but gradually it's having 120 members. At now there are 120 member states of NAM, means it was expanded. Most of the newly independent countries, they joined non-aligned movement to have their independence, to remain their independence. And this was the collective, that was the collective form of LDCs, least developed countries. So some of the people says that is the non-aligned movement, that is the neutrality or isolationism. But non-alignment was not isolationism. This was not the theory of isolationism. This was not the theory of neutrality also. Isolationism means when there is the policy which is staying away, which is aloof from the world affairs, but it is not so. Non-alignment, the countries of non-alignment and India itself, they participate in the world affairs and try to reduce the tensions between the rivalries of Cold War. rivalries of Cold War, US and USSR. So that is why we cannot say neutrality is the isolationism. And at the same time, this was the non-aligned movement was not the neutrality. Neutrality is that when the state is not supporting either of the side. When there is the wars like situation, the non-aligned countries, they try to reduce the tensions between these rivals, and they try to stop the war itself. And when if the war broke out, they try to maintain peace with the mediating between these two sides. So that is why we cannot say this non-aligned movement is isolationism and the neutrality. No, it is not isolationism, it is not neutrality. And this in this we can the next part of this, what was the role of India in that. इंडिया का रोल क्या था कोल्ड वॉर में. सो एज द लीडर ऑफ नैम, the founder members of NAM, India's response on the ongoing Cold War. This was the time when the Cold War was at the peak. The Cold War was in this ongoing Cold War. The India's role was, India's response was double, twofold. So what was at the one level, it has to stay out of this movement, out of this Cold War, not to join either of the power bloc US and USSR. उसने खुद तो join करना ही नहीं था. Then number two, the second response was that is to raise the voice against the newly decolonized countries, becoming the aligned of these superpowers, कि उन्हें भी जो है इनको भी कन्विंस करना है न्यूली इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्रीज को नॉट टू बी अलाइंड विद एनी ऑफ द सुपर पावर और द पावर अलायंसेस. तो इट वाज द रिस्पॉन्स एंड इंडिया डिड दैट. So many of the countries, newly independent countries, Asia, Africa and Latin America, they also joined to the non-aligned movement, and at present there are 120 members. But sometime there is the policy of non-aligned movement of India is criticized. Some of the observers, they criticize to India that India is not following truly this non-aligned policy. क्यों नहीं ये फॉलो कर रहा है? देर आर द टू रीजन. सम ऑफ द पीपल से, सम critics says that India is having unprincipled on the issues of non-alignment. कैसे है ये, किस तरह से, कैसे? इंडिया नॉन अलाइनमेंट वॉज सेड टू बी अनप्रिंसिपल, कि इन द नेम ऑफ नेशनल इंटरेस्ट, तो इंडिया स्टेइंग अवे व्हेन देयर वाज अ नीड टू टेक अ फर्म डिसीजन एट द वर्ल्ड अफेयर्स. तो इस पॉइंट के ऊपर भी हम कह सकते हैं, या क्रिटिक्स ने कहा कि इंडिया नॉन अलाइंड को पूरी तरह से फॉलो नहीं करता है, बीइंग अ फाउंडर मेंबर ऑफ नैम. एंड सेकेंड टाइम इज दैट इट इज सजेस्टेड दैट इंडिया वाज अनकंसिस्टेंट एंड टुक contradictory positions. Why contradictory position? Because in 1971 India signed a friendship treaty with USSR. India is not joining any of the power bloc, but in the beginning of the chapter we have studied about that. We have read in the chapter that India is having the tilt towards USSR. तो हमारा टिल्ट तो उस साइड था. तो इंडिया ने 1971 में जो 20 ईयर्स के लिए फ्रेंडशिप ट्रीटी साइन की, इट वाज कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी. कि on one side, on the one way we are saying we will not be aligned with any of the power bloc, and on the other side we are signing, India is signing a friendship treaty. But what was the argument of India इन रिगार्ड? इंडिया क्या कहता है कि मैंने ये ट्रीटी साइन क्यों की है? बिकॉज उन्हें ये लगा, इंडिया इज आर्ग्यूइंग दैट एंड द क्राइसिस एंड द बांग्लादेश क्राइसिस, जब बांग्लादेश वॉर हुई थी उस टाइम जो है इंडिया को डिप्लोमेटिक एंड मिलिटरीली हेल्प की ज़रूरत पड़ सकती थी, एंड इंडिया वॉज नॉट हैविंग दैट स्ट्रॉन्ग एनी स्ट्रॉन्ग member or any strong friend. So that is why they signed a friendship treaty, and this treaty will not stop India to make relation with the other countries and with the US also. कि अगर हम पावर ब्लॉक ज्वाइन करते हैं, तो if we have signed the treaty with the USSR, then we cannot be a friend of US. And on the other side, if we are the friend of US, we cannot make the relation with USSR. So ये जो treaty अगर हमने इस फ्रेंडशिप ट्रीटी USSR के साइन के साथ की है, ये हमें दूसरी कंट्रीज़ के साथ इंडिपेंडेंट डिसीजन लेने से नहीं रोकती है. तो इस तरह से हम ये कह सकते हैं कि इंडिया अपने आप को डिफेंड भी कर रहा है. एंड नाउ देयर इज व्हेन दिस कोल्ड वॉर केम टू एन एंड इन 1991. तो दिस was the third option given to the countries not to join any of the power block. You should join NAM. लेकिन अब अगर ये कहा जा रहा है कि when there is no cold war, so there is no need of the non-aligned movement, it is not relevant today. Some people says कि इसकी अब ज़रूरत ही नहीं है, क्योंकि ये तो नॉन अलाइन मूवमेंट तो बनाया ही इसलिए गया था कि हमें किसी पावर ब्लॉक को ज्वाइन नहीं करना है, कोल्ड वॉर का पार्ट नहीं बनना है. बट नाउ देर इज़ नो कोल्ड वॉर, सो दिस नॉन अलाइन मूवमेंट इज ऑल्सो इररेलिवेंट. नो, it is not irrelevant, because this was not only for the reducing the cold war tensions or to join any of the power block. ये हमें एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म देता है. This non-aligned movement provide a platform to all these developing countries. Now we can say these countries are not LDCs, these are the developing countries. So these developing countries get a platform in the form of non-aligned movement where they can discuss all their problems, because these developing countries almost their problems are same, and they can discuss over it on that platform and they get the solution. They can cooperate with each other on the other matters also, not only to reduce the war or the points of war and peace. इसी के लिए नहीं है. देयर आर द इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज कैन बी डिस्कस, देयर ओन रीजनल प्रॉब्लम्स कैन बी डिस्कस, देयर एनवायरमेंटल इश्यूज कैन बी डिस्कस्ड. सो दैट इज वाई these are some of the core values of non-aligned movement, and still at present also this is relevant and it's working perfectly. So non-aligned movement जो है, it is the third part or third topic of this chapter, first chapter, Cold War and non-aligned movement. Hope I am very clear to all of you, and this chapter is well, this topic and chapter as a whole is well understood by you. And in the next time, next video, I will start the next chapter. Thank you, Vita. Have a nice day.